Good morning and welcome to the second day of Tech Spirit Barcelona 2025, an event that is co-organized by Tech Barcelona and the Cambra de Comerç de Barcelona. Yesterday, we were exploring a little bit about the dualities, tools that create a disrupt human and machine ambition and impact. Today, we are continuing with the same spirit, sharper insights, bold conversation, and a shared commitment to shaping our dual world with one Tech Spirit. So let's get started with the first keynote. This morning, Andreas Merentitis will walk us through the trends driving this transformation, how companies like OLX are leveraging AI to reinvent trust and also user experience, and what the next 2 or 3 years might look like as marketplaces become smarter, faster, and more predictive. So please welcome Andreas Merentitis from OLX Group.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Perfect. So, first of all, thanks a lot for joining today. Quite early in the morning. I hope that I make it interesting for you. We will cover today 3 main topics related to what you just heard, starting a bit with the generic, some innovation trends, then going to some specific AI use cases on marketplaces, and a bit of looking forward in the future and what comes next. So first of all, starting from the abstract, in a commercial setting, what is strategy? Strategy is a plan that aims to deliver a combination of growth and profits in a commercial setting. And that, in that, of course, sustained innovation is particularly important because on one hand, it creates customer satisfaction that drives growth and also structural competitive advantage that creates profits. Let's take an example of computer science from back in the 60s until 2024. This is a quite interesting one that shows that computer science is, of course, not new in terms of executing quickly and innovating. So if you take from, let's say, 1965, the hard disks that were just appearing, back then, a hard disk that had 7 megabytes of capacity and cost of roughly $2,000 per megabyte was the standard. Projecting 2024, the Seagate Barracuda had 8 terabytes and 0.0000015 cents on the dollar per megabyte cost. Just to extrapolate of how, let's say, amazing this is, how rapid the pace of innovation this is, if we think in similar terms of a Mustang and a classic American car, if the car industry had innovated at the same pace, then the Mustang from 1965 would be able in 2024 to accelerate on millions of kilometers per hour and cost 1 cent. Obviously, of course, this never happened, but just a little bit of reference point. It's quite important when we're talking about innovation to have in mind how innovation cycles and innovation waves are working. So a book that I definitely recommend in this setting is the Never Normal from Peter Hintzen that shows us the, let's say, way that innovation cycles are accelerating. So typically, innovation took decades or at least many years before to, let's say, materialize. But as we are progressing, these cycles become faster and faster. From, let's say, 30 years to 20 years to 10 years to less than 5 years more recently. And that, of course, has implications in terms of how this innovation reaches the customers and affects customer behavior, market dynamics, and operating models. Another important aspect to keep in mind is that we as humans typically are hardwired to expect linear progress. So we expect that we put effort on something, and this progresses linearly according to the pattern that you see with the dust line here. But typically, innovation does not work like that. The way that it happens is you start slow, and you reach a point of, let's say, critical mass or an inflection point. And from that point on, innovation really catches up and goes super quickly, potentially even exponentially. So it creates these S-curves that you can see with a blue line on this graph. And that, of course, also has very clear and important implications because it creates this pattern. So if you are in an industry and you are the, let's say, incumbent, when a new technology or new type of innovation first appears, it might be that it is significantly worse than the current best practice, the current best models. But because of this S pattern, it can quickly reach the inflection point, and from that point on, of course, it becomes a big problem, and it is very difficult to catch up. So this creates the pattern that is called myopia to threat, that typically big industries are quite prone to fall victim to. When it comes to specifically Gen AI, of course, the last few years have been quite interesting. You can see here the time that it took to reach 100 million users from many different, let's say, big tech companies and respective innovations, from Google, Uber, Instagram, and many others, up to ChatGPT. And you can see how quickly, literally just, oops, something happened here, but OK. The big picture is still visible, that's good. So it literally took just a couple of weeks to reach that number for ChatGPT, significantly less than any of the big tech giants that you see in earlier parts of this graph. But of course, in terms of generative AI, this is just the starting point. Two more additional things to keep in mind is the graphs that are shown here. On the left part, you can see how much time typically took for traditional machine learning to reach human-level performance in many types of applications, from understanding language to answering questions to classifying things in images, objects in images, and so on. And typically it took many years. But after, let's say, 2018, 2019, and even more after the era of Gen AI and LLMs, this timeline really compressed significantly to just a few months. And at the same time, on the right hand of this image, we are seeing the number of scientific papers in the field of ML and AI, which is in some sense also a proxy for the amount of investment that is going in this area. And it's very clear, of course, that this has very rapidly accelerated after 2010 and almost being on an exponential curve from that point on. So putting all those things together, we can imagine that we can, of course, use those technologies to really reimagine the shopping experience, from discovery to frictionless product listing, using Gen AI and using AI agents moving forward. So some of the questions that AI can pose is, can it change the business through a different user experience? Can it change traffic patterns? And can it trigger opportunities? So moving a little bit to the second part, we will just see very few selected AI use cases, just to have a little bit of a grounding of what already exists and what is coming moving forward. So Shopify already has live what is described here. So this is an assistant for the sellers, the shops that can very easily provide a few keywords, and out of those keywords, the whole experience can be, at least the first version of that, automatically generated. So you give the keywords, you get an online shop live with the AI store builder that has different layouts and different suggestions of how it can work together. And basically, you get a little bit of head start so that you can quickly put something live and then iterate and improve that. That is something that is already existing today. Then on the other side of the equation, so not on the seller side, but more on the buyer side, you have big tech players, for example, Amazon, that is offering Rufus, Rufus being their buyer assistant. So basically, you can interact with Rufus, you can get recommendations, you can get comparisons of products, you can find what you want. The discovery experience is, in some sense, reimagined to use AI and specifically conversational shopping in this case. And perhaps the more interesting part is that this is really contextualized and context-aware and hyper-personalized. So if you are in a specific part of the user journey, it will provide you information about what are the suggestions from that point on, what are the, let's say, different alternatives, what are things that are relevant to the specific aspect of the experience that you are in this particular moment. With Perplexity, of course, Perhaps some of you have already also tried that. Givers can try new ways to shop online. Conversational search that knows their history, learns what matters, and moves seamlessly from discovery to making decisions. And shopping is, of course, in this case, done with an AI assistant that can have an outsized impact. AI understands each shopper's unique needs better than than algorithms that have been traditionally optimized also for advertiser dollars. At least this is the sales point as of today. From OLX perspective, we also have, of course, OLX being a two-sided marketplace, so you can sell second-hand items from your, let's say, electronics, mobile phone, and whatnot, up to your car or potentially even your house. The way that we are approaching it is we also have tools both for the seller and for the buyer. And for the seller, we have this capability that we call snap to sell. So basically, you take a photo of an item, and all the description of the ad is automatically generated, including what exactly you are seeing, what are the properties of, let's say, a fashion item or a specific mobile phone, and basically the majority of the text of the ad, more than 90%, is automatically generated. And of course, as a seller, you still have the option to edit it and polish it, but most of the times it is already quite optimized from the get-go. This is something that we already have live, and our A/B tests have shown that there is 50% reduction in terms of the manual effort to post for categories like fashion or electronics. And that is quite significant at OLX scale. I think our current numbers is that it has saved roughly 1.9 billion keystrokes in the last 6 months or so, across all markets, not only, of course, in one market. Another capability that we have created is what we call real estate add to video. So video is, of course, a more engaging format than, let's say, text and images that traditionally marketplaces have been using. It offers rich information content in a compact form, and is attractive for sellers, and of course also an incentive to improve ad description and images so that basically the videos are better and the buyers are getting more information and can quickly find what they are looking for. So let's see how it looks for real estate in this particular example.
Hi, I'm Kenny, or at least a version of Kenny. I'm not real. I was created with AI. Now imagine this. Every real estate agent could have their own AI version, creating polished property videos in minutes. No cameras, no editing, just photos in and professional media out, all in any language. This is the future of property presentations. To jest przyszłość prezentacji nieruchomości. Aceasta este viitorul prezentărilor imobiliare. Este é o futuro das apresentações imobiliárias. This isn't far away. It's already starting with ad to video.
So this is something that in our real estate vertical is already live and at scale. We are also bringing it to our motors verticals, similar types of functionalities. So basically the user, the seller or the car dealer or the real estate agent just does what they always did, uploads their ads in classic, let's say, formats. And the video is automatically generated with Gen AI on the background, and they can still approve it or make a suggestion on how to edit it. But basically, they don't have to do anything more than that. Everything is done fully automatically with Gen AI on the background. But this is already things that are existing. So what is coming next? We discussed a little bit about what OLX is doing, but also what Perplexity, what Amazon, what Shopify are doing. This is just scratching the iceberg because this is basically what is already existing. Today, you are probably in an era that the next 1 to 5 years will really transform search, ranking, and online marketplaces in a way much more dramatic, much more drastic than the last 15 years combined. So from the traditional, let's say, experience of commerce as it exists more or less today with manual searching, comparing, purchasing through static interfaces and filters and keyword search, we are moving more and more towards experiences that are enabled by agents, agentic commerce, where the agents, at least as of now, act as advisors, mediating transactions, acting on behalf of users to search, negotiate, and purchase. But moving forward, it might also go beyond that. So fundamentally, shifting the way that supplier and consumer-customer relationships are working with potentially new intermediation layers and basically potentially moving all the way to agentic-based commerce, at least for some types of applications and domains and businesses as a starting point. So how does the near future look like in that sense? These are just some examples that I sampled with those main themes that you can see on the left part. But of course, they are just indications. So you can have product discovery that is moving from mostly keyword-based search to personalized and context-aware discovery experiences. Product recommendations, where the algorithm based on similarities that exist today are rapidly changing to hyper-personalized and real-time types of recommendations. And hyper-personalized here can go to the extreme. So from, let's say, customer segments that are really big and roughly well-defined, you can go to customer segments of one. So one individual user can be basically the whole outcome of the recommender can be fine-tuned and tailored to the particular, let's say, preferences of each individual user. Customer support is another area that is being transformed from fixed chatbots going to GenAI-driven virtual assistants, for now mostly in the assisting part, but of course, these are also quite rapidly improving. Product listings from template-based descriptions to automatically generated SEO-optimized personalized ads, something that also I showed to some extent being there already in OLX and others. Pricing strategies, moving from rule-based static pricing to optimized for real-time demand, competition, and user willingness to pay. Onboarding sellers, moving from how-to guides and forms to GenAI assistants that automate and simplify seller registration processes, making it really easy to start a new shop, similar to what Shopify already does, but even more advanced. Marketing campaigns, manually created email, let's say, campaigns, is something that is happening quite regularly still in this domain. This is moving towards AI-driven real-time and data-rich campaigns, which of course can also be measured quite accurately in respect to conversion and impact. And finally, localization of experiences, moving from manual translation and adaptations to dynamic GenAI-powered localization and culture-relevant marketing. And this is just looking ahead, perhaps 1 or 2 years. If you look even further ahead, the new, let's say, promise or potential risk, if we are not adapting, is agentic shopping. So how far will we go towards having autonomous shopping agents that we can ask them, find me the, let's say, best mobile phone in this price range with these specifications, and they go and do that. Or similarly, find me tickets for this type of event under these constraints or this budget, and they go and do it automatically for us. Hyper-personalization, how far will that go? As I said, there is already experimentation. This goes to personalizing for each individual user instead of specific segments, as it was the case in the past. How will the early part of the discovery journey change? How will it be in, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years down the line? With all those capabilities, with discovery experience that is rapidly transformed by AI agents. Will we give negotiation capability to those agents? So will they be able to interact with each other and with agents of other parts of the, let's say, supply or demand aspect, and then converge to, let's say, an optimal outcome? How would smart product comparisons look like beyond, let's say, the summaries and the ways that this is already done today in products like Rufus? And will it somehow this also interact with augmented reality, which is another trend that is a little bit on the back burner now, but will it perhaps come back? So all of these are super interesting questions, and of course, nobody has all the answers today. It is important to keep experimenting and keep innovating. And as somebody quite smart and wise has said, the best way to predict the future is to create it.